Hi, I'm Grace. I'm 21 and I'm from California, USA. I don't really talk about my feelings much. Honestly, I've always been kind of scared too. But lately I've been carrying so much inside that I just needed somewhere to let it out. When I found Girls' Room, it felt safe. Like maybe this could be the place where I could finally speak without being judged. I've never really shared my story before, but I think it's time. Maybe someone out there will understand, or maybe it'll help another girl who's felt the same way I have. So, yeah, this is my story. Have you ever felt like an outsider in your own home? Like the very people who are supposed to love and support you are the ones causing you the most pain? If you have, I want you to know, I've been there too. Growing up, I used to think home meant safety. It was supposed to be where love lived, where you could be yourself without fear. But when my dad remarried, that meaning began to fade. Suddenly, there was a stepmother and a stepbrother. And the house that once echoed with warmth began to feel cold, sharp, and unfamiliar. My stepmother didn't see me as a child to love. She saw me as competition. Every good thing I did became a problem. Every smile, every achievement. Somehow it bothered her. If I got an A, she'd ask why it wasn't an A+. If I cleaned the dishes, she'd point out a spot I missed. And if her son, my stepbrother, did the bare minimum, he was celebrated like a star. He learned his part quickly. He'd twist my words, get me in trouble, and play the innocent one. And somehow I was always the one to blame. I still remember one day so clearly. I had drawn a picture I was so proud of. I couldn't wait to show my dad. But before I could, my stepbrother snatched it and tore it in half. When I cried out, my stepmother came rushing in. And guess who got blamed? Me. She said I provoked him, that I needed to learn to control my temper, and my dad. My dad, caught in the middle, just told me to apologize. To be the bigger person. Can you imagine? Being told to apologize for being hurt? That kind of pain doesn't just break you. It reshapes how you see yourself. For years, I tried to win their approval. I thought, maybe if I'm good enough, quiet enough, perfect enough, they'll finally see me. I did extra chores. I helped my stepbrother with his homework. I bit my tongue when I was treated unfairly. I swallowed my feelings just to keep the peace. But it was never enough. The goalposts were always moving. The more I gave, the less I seemed to matter. And slowly, something inside me began to fade. I stopped laughing the way I used to. I stopped drawing. I stopped speaking up, because every time I did, I paid the price. And that's the thing about growing up in a toxic environment. It doesn't just hurt you physically or emotionally. It starts convincing you that you deserve the hurt. I began to believe that I was the problem, that I was unlovable, that if I could just fix myself, everything would be okay. But no matter how hard I tried, peace never came. There were nights I'd cry quietly into my pillow, afraid to make a sound. Days where I'd feel invisible even while sitting at the same table as my family. It was like being a ghost in my own home. The turning point didn't come in a dramatic moment. It came quietly, one night in my room after yet another argument I didn't start. I was sitting on the floor, crying, when I looked into the mirror. The girl staring back at me looked like a stranger, tired, defeated, small. And suddenly, a quote I once read came to my mind. You can't change the people around you, but you can change the people you choose to be around. That was it. I realized I had been trying to get water from a dry well. I couldn't force love out of people who didn't want to give it. The only thing I could change was myself, so I started small. I stopped explaining myself when I wasn't believed. I stopped apologizing for things I didn't do. I stopped trying to prove my worth to people who were determined not to see it. When my stepmother made cutting remarks, I'd take a deep breath and think, that's her opinion, not my reality. I began to build distance, emotional distance. Instead of trying to fit in at home, I started finding spaces where I belonged. I joined the school debate team. I volunteered at an animal shelter. I made friends who celebrated me, not out of obligation, but out of genuine love. Slowly, I built a world that didn't revolve around their approval. A world where I could breathe again. It wasn't easy. The guilt came like waves. My stepmother would say, "After all we've done for you, you're so ungrateful." And for a while, I believed it. Because guilt is the favorite weapon of those who manipulate. But with time, I learned something powerful. Setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's an act of self-preservation. A boundary isn't a wall to keep people out. It's a line that shows them where the door is. And I had to become the guardian of my own peace. I started spending more time in places that felt safe. The library, a friend's house, quiet cafes. Anywhere I could just exist without tension. I also made myself a promise. That I would never dim my light again to make others comfortable. I remembered a quote that became my mantra. The sun doesn't ask for permission to shine, and neither should you. So I started celebrating myself, even for the small things. If I got a good grade, I'd treat myself to a cupcake. If I finished a project, I'd take a walk and feel proud. I started becoming my own biggest cheerleader. And at first it felt strange, but over time, it became healing, because when no one else claps for you, you learn that your own hands are enough. If you're listening to this and any of it sounds familiar, please hear me. You are not the problem. You are not unlovable. You are not too sensitive, too emotional, or too much. You are a human being who deserves kindness, respect, and peace. You can't control how others treat you, but you can control how much power you give them. You can choose to create space between their chaos and your peace. Find your tribe, the people who lift you up. It could be friends, teachers, mentors, or even an online community like this one. Build your support system brick by brick until it feels like home. And remember, you do not have to participate in every argument you're invited to. Silence can be strength. Distance can be healing. Be kind to yourself. You did the best you could in a hard situation. Forgive yourself for not knowing how to protect your peace sooner. You were just a child doing your best, but now you get to write the next chapter. You get to decide who you want to be, what kind of love you'll accept, and what kind of home you'll build. Your story doesn't end in that toxic house. That was only the beginning. The rest of your life, the peaceful, joyful, authentic part, is still waiting for you. And I promise, it's worth the wait, because the strongest trees grow in the toughest winds. And maybe, just maybe, all this pain was the soil where your strength was born. Thank you for listening to my story. For the longest time, I felt like I had nowhere to speak, no space where my pain would be understood. But finding Girls' Room changed that. It feels like a warm, safe corner of the world where I can finally let my heart breathe. I'm so grateful that someone created this space, a place where girls like me can open up, be heard, and begin to heal. I hope my story reaches every sister out there who's been through something similar, who still feels unseen or unheard. You're not alone. We're in this together. I'll be reading the comments, waiting to hear your thoughts and stories too. Maybe through your words, I'll find more guidance, more strength, and we can all learn from each other. Thank you, Girls' Room, for giving me a voice. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Together we heal, we grow, and we rise.